Hello, my dearest among all dear students. I welcome you all again in this lecture series on English linguistics and phonetics. This is the fourth lecture in this series. My dear students, let me begin with a very powerful thought by Nelson Mandela. I quote, "If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. But if you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart." I unquote. This quote beautifully captures the importance of language in shaping not just communication, but also our identity and our emotional connections. My dear students, after 1947, India faced a very important and sensitive question. The question was, what should be the role of English in an independent nation? And with so many languages, the situation was complex. And there was a dire need to balance English, Hindi, and regional languages carefully. As a learner of English, I would encourage you to think critically about this statement that language is not just a subject you study in school or colleges. It is deeply connected to the culture, power, and opportunity. And throughout this lecture, I'll try to reflect on how English in India moved from being a colonial language to become a global tool. My dear students, in 1948-49, the University Education Commission was the first major step after independence to address education issue. This commission attempted to strike a balance between English and Indian languages. While English was seen as important for higher education, there was also a strong push to promote Indian languages. However, this created tension between Hindi speaking and non Hindi speaking regions in India. So, students, this is where we begin to see that language is not just academic, it is deeply political, personal, and emotional. So, during the early 1950s, this focus was mainly on expanding access to education in India. And the Committee on Primary Education worked towards improving school infrastructure, especially in rural areas. And the Secondary Education Commission later suggested that students should learn at least two languages, with the mother tongue given importance and English introduced gradually. At this stage, English was recognized mainly for higher education, not for everyday communication. And now, as a learner of English, we must notice how priorities evolve. First, access, then quality, and then skills. The Official Languages Commission in 1956 recommended that Hindi should replace English by 1965. However, this led to strong opposition, especially in South India, where people feared loss of identity and job opportunities. The protests in 1965 were intense and even violent. As a result, the government assured that English would continue. And this moment is very important. It shows how public response can shape policies of country. So students, always remember that language decisions for any country must consider people's emotions and their realities rather than focusing merely on political goals. Now, in this slide, we will discuss three language formula. So, to solve the language issues, the three language formula was introduced, and students were expected to learn a regional language, Hindi, or another Indian language, and English. The aim was national unity and balanced language learning. However, my dear students, this formula was not implemented equally across all states and resistance remained. So, as a thoughtful learners of English, we should ask ourselves, is learning multiple languages a burden or an advantage? Because in today's global world, multilingualism is actually a strength. And then, my dear students, the Education Commission, which is also known as the Kothari Commission, introduced the 10 plus 2 plus 3 system in India, and it supported regional languages while also emphasizing English for higher education. The important thing to notice here is that it began to view English not just as a subject but as a skill, and this marks a shift in thinking regarding language learning, and the focus was on language learning should be more practical and purposeful rather than just a theory or a subject. So, over time, this particular approach to teaching English changed significantly. Earlier, the focus was only on literature and grammar translation, but now the emphasis shifted from grammar and literature to communication. Mm, in simple ways, I should say English was used in real life situation, or the focus was to teach students how to use English in their real life situations. So, for this, new teaching methods like direct method, structural approaches were introduced, and these were influenced by experts such as Henry Sweet and A.S. Hornby. So, my dear students, when you were listening to this language and skill concept, you must be wondering that you also experience same today. For example, you learn English through speaking, listening, and interaction rather than just rote learning or through memorization. In 1968, the National Policy on Education formally supported the three language formula, and this policy emphasized the importance of regional languages, and at the same time it recognized English as an international language, especially importance for science and technology. And the study groups on English were also set up. So this policy clearly shows India's attempt to balance tradition with modernity. And as a learner, we should also appreciate how these education policies have been trying to prepare you for both local and global context. So in 1969 to 71, the study group on English focused on improving this quality of teaching English education. And this study group on English emphasized better teacher training, improved teaching materials, and practical use of language. So, this reflects an important shift, that is from policy making to implementation. So, my dear students, whatever was in theory and in policy, Now it was coming into practice, because policies are only effective when they are properly practiced and implemented in classrooms. And in 1968, the policy largely repeated the ideas of 1968, but this National Policy on Education 1986 focused more on implementation. So the program of action aimed to improve rural education. And later on, Acharya Ramamurthy Commission in 1990 reviewed this policy and stressed the importance of quality learning rather than just increasing years of education. So, as a learner of English, we should also understand that quality matters more than quantity in education. And then in 1989, the Curriculum Development Center was established, and the center promoted learner centered teaching. It means the learner was the focus in the classroom, and this center encouraged flexible courses and project based learning. However, in reality, the system still struggled with exam pressure and rote learning, and there remained a gap between classroom learning and real life application. So, don't you think, students, our focus should be more on understanding the concepts rather than just scoring marks here? So, what we can say and what we understand is that despite many reforms, certain challenges remained. First was related to the exam. I mean, the students were focusing more on exam rather than skills, and there was a continuous rote learning practice, and there was a gap between theoretical knowledge and practical use. So here, students, in 21st century, you have this opportunity to break this pattern, since means I mean you use English in real life situations. You should use English in discussions, writing, and critical thinking. And recently in 2020, we have National Education Policy, and this NEP 2020 represents a modern and progressive shift. It promotes mother tongue instruction in early education while also supporting multilingualism and the importance of English as a global language. This policy also focuses on critical thinking, skill development, and flexibility. So, students, this policy gives you the space to become independent thinkers and confident communicators. So, at the end, I should say that this journey of English language teaching in India after independence has been shaped by continuous debates, policies, challenges, problems, and reforms. And English has moved from being a colonial language to becoming a global tool. But it also challenges the equality and access. So the key idea is the balance. The balance should be between English and Indian languages, between global opportunities and local identities. So let me end this lecture with a very powerful thought by Braj B. Kachru. He said once, I quote, English now belongs to all those who use it, I unquote. So, my dear students, your goal is not just to learn English but to use it meaningfully while staying connected to your own linguistic and cultural roots. With this, I thank you so much for listening to me. We will meet in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye, take care.